Today we're going to be looking at the Rent Manager feature called Service Manager. Service Manager makes receiving and processing maintenance requests quick, easy, and paperless. No more printing out work orders for your maintenance tech just to have them thrown away at the end of the day. Instead, service issues are entered directly into Rent Manager by the tenant, Rent Manager call center, the maintenance tech, or the property manager. From there, the manager confirms all information is filled out, schedules and assigns the issue to the maintenance tech, who receives a notification on their tablet that there's a new issue waiting. Once the maintenance tech has finished the work and entered a resolution, the issue is passed on to the manager for final review. When the manager closes the issue, the tenant receives a notification that the work has been completed. Now, let's jump into Rent Manager and take a look at all the information that makes up a service issue. In Rent Manager, we're looking at a brand new service issue. There are 4 sections we'll go over on this page. The first section, at the top of your screen, is your time and date information. Selecting the checkbox in the left of the date field automatically populates today's date. You can also select the down arrow to the right to drop down a calendar view for easier date selection. Alternatively, you can also simply click into the field and use your keyboard to enter the date. The due date is a required field. If you do not have a hard and fast due date, you should do your best to estimate a realistic time frame in which the work should be completed. The next field is your scheduled date. This is the date that you would enter to signal to your maintenance tech when you wanted this work completed. And finally, the close date is the last field that should be completed in a service issue. This should only be entered when the status has been resolved. The next section I want to talk about is the service issue information box. The first field that you have is category. If you select the drop-down arrow to the right, you see all the available categories in our system. I do want to point out that there are a few categories you should not use. Anything that starts with accounting is for the accounting department's use only and should not be used on the property. The next field is priority, and your options are standard or high. A high priority status indicates an emergency work order, and anything else is considered standard. Even though there are more options listed here, these are the only 2 priorities you should choose between, because annual, quarterly, monthly, and daily are reserved for recurring issues rather than one-off issues. Recurring issues are the exact same as regular issues, except they are automatically created on an annual, quarterly, monthly, or daily basis. Recurring issues can only be set up by the training team at the direction of the regional manager. Managers cannot create their own recurring issues, so if you have any that you need created, make sure to reach out to your regional manager. The next field is status. Issues that have been created but not started should have a status of new. When the maintenance tech checks into an issue, that status should be updated to work in progress. And once completed, the tech will update it to for review. Finally, once the manager reviews the resolution and confirms the work is completed, the status should be updated to resolved. And finally, the assigned to field displays the user who's responsible for completing the work. Each property has a maintenance tech user. The maintenance tech user will always be called property name and maintenance. Here you can see I have Berkeley Maintenance, Chastain Maintenance, Clarkson Square Maintenance. In the event that the property has 2 maintenance techs, you would see them differentiated this way. You see we have Dunwoody 2 Maintenance and Dunwoody Maintenance. These fields, category, priority, status, and assigned to, should never be unassigned. These are required to complete an issue. The next section we're going to look at is the service issue details. The first field is your issue title. The issue title should be descriptive enough to get a basic understanding of what needs to be done. Do not include tenant name, unit, property, category, or any other duplicate information. This also should not be a full sentence, as it should be a snapshot. Underneath is the issue description. The more complicated the issue, the more detailed the description should be. However, more than likely, your description will only be 1 to 2 sentences. The goal of entering an issue description is transparency. The idea is that somebody can come pick up where you left off and have all the information they need to successfully complete this issue. Keep in mind that regional managers and corporate can look at any issue that you create to see an issue description. They may do this to get more information on an issue with a tenant or to get more information about a question that an investor has asked them. Again, the main goal is transparency and efficiency. The next field is the resolution field. You cannot close an issue without entering a resolution. This field should include a brief description of the work completed and the final status. The next section is the link section. Linking a tenant, prospect, unit, or property to an issue is important because it creates a history and notes item on the linked account. Later on, when we look at managing your issues, you'll see why it's easier to go to a unit or tenant's history and notes and look up a closed issue rather than having to look it up by the unit number, category, open or due date, or any other information that you may have forgotten. The first thing I want to show you is how to link a tenant or a prospect. You can select the magnifying glass to the left, and that will open up your search window. You can search directly by typing in a name, or you can filter current, previous, or future residents. You can also decide if you want to see prospects. In this case, we're just going to type in Smith and see what comes up. In this case, I'm looking for Kathy Smitherman at Chastain. And you see when I select their name that the unit number and the property is automatically filled out. The next example I want to show you is maybe you don't know the tenant name, but you know the unit number. You can select the magnifying glass to the left, type in the unit number, and then from there, it will populate a list of data for all corresponding unit numbers. When you double click, you can see that the tenant and the property are automatically filled out. In our final example, let's say that there is not a tenant or a unit linked to the issue, but it is just a general property maintenance request. It is still critical that you link the property, and we'll talk about that in more detail later on when we look at managing our service issues. And the last thing I want to draw your attention to are the 3 boxes at the bottom of the links section. When a tenant submits an issue online, they are prompted to select whether or not maintenance is allowed to enter without the tenant present. Also, if a property allows dogs, they will be prompted to let you know if a pet will be home. And finally, just as each tenant has their own history and notes, each issue has their own history and notes. Issue history and notes let you create an appointment directly from the issue, or you can simply add notes and attachments. This would be things like estimates or other related documentation that you want to keep with this issue. So now that we've looked at all the required fields for a service issue, in the next course, we're going to look at all the different ways a service issue can be added to Rent Manager.